Hey everyone.
Jacob, I just got to figure this out because I got to get the details before we get in here. So you were a representative for the Danes in the UN.
Yeah, I was one of the officers
Okay.
last time Denmark was on the UN Security Council. They're actually on the council now. It's like every 20 years Denmark is on. And I was there last time.
Oh,
So
you get a spot start. It's sort of like being on a soccer team where it's like, okay, let's play some of these guys. It's the end of the season. That's how the UN looks at Denmark.
Yeah. More or less. More or less.
so you know the place pretty well. How batshit crazy was that speech yesterday? I mean, it seemed like it was out of left field.
Yeah, you've seen international batshit before, so yeah.
I have. And I was saying the first thing I thought was this was the craziest speech since Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was there in the chamber in 2006 and said it smelled of sulfur because George W. Bush was linking up with the devil. So, and actually, I was on TV. I was going to go on live TV. I had the earpiece in. And I was listening to his speech while I was trying to prepare to talk about these drones that had closed down the Copenhagen airport. And I was listening to all that shit. So, yeah.
You have a lot to say.
Well, yeah, take us through it. I mean, like we saw him complain about a deep state escalator and a deep state teleprompter, and then he said they brought in 17 trillion, and then he told everybody in attendance, "Your countries suck. I'm the best. I know what I'm talking about. You don't.
We're going to hell.
You're going to hell. Yeah, so are we too. Take us through it. Why was it the craziest bullshit you've ever seen? And having been in those rooms, being part of the UN Security Council, what are some of your intelligence apparatus pals around the world saying about it today?
Yeah, well, it was a shocking speech, really. Blaming the UN for everything that's going on, blaming it for wars, wouldn't help Trump do all these peace deals these 7 peace deals that he has claims to have succeeded in pushing through, and also blaming the UN on immigration, etc., etc. So. I was listening to that and I was like, oh my God. So that's why I said this is the craziest stuff since Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. And
No,
there was also a pretty crazy person.
There seems to be like 2 Trumps yesterday. There was a Trump that was on the podium doing the wildest, speech you've ever heard. And then there was the other Trump, which showed up with Zelensky, who seemed to be the nicest, most conciliatory. I'm opposed to Russia. I'm the best friends. You guys are my heroes, Ukraine. You guys are going to win
powerful.
the war.
Yeah,
You're going to get your territories back. I mean, it's
you guys.
It was a schizophrenic day for him.
Yeah. I don't know. My first thought when I saw that post on Truth Social was that Ukrainians might have spiked his drink or something. To get him to finally realize what has been really, really obvious since January, that this crazy delusional peace stuff wouldn't work. Yeah. Because Russia for sure isn't going to compromise, and Ukraine isn't going to hoist the white flag. So this has just been 9 months of crazy shit, and now he looks to give it up, and at least that's something. So if we stick to the positives, that's at least good that he's not claiming all this nonsense anymore.
But when you go through the actual post itself, it reads like, you guys can do it. You got them where you want them. You might even be able to take back some Russian border control. You might even take some of their spots, and you've got him on the ropes. He's a paper tiger. Which language being language, and what we know about Donald Trump, language and works traditionally don't go together. His works have been stalling for Putin, not sending Patriot missiles to Ukraine that were promised, not sending munitions and other equipment that was already in Poland, actually pulling them out of Poland and sending them to Israel. Slow playing 2 weeks, Donnie 2 weeks. That's what my friend Lev Parnas calls him, Donnie 2 weeks. Donnie 2 weeks. And yesterday, when he said, I think NATO should start shooting Russian planes down, and then followed that up with a complete 180. Not only did it energize the world, it also left out some pretty important language, because he never said anything about what America was going to do to help the situation. He just said, I've just recently come into the knowledge of the wholesale understanding of what's going on in Ukraine. Go get them, boys. I mean, when you look at that as an intelligence officer, you have other conversations. What do you attribute it to?
Well, that's really, really hard to say because this is all smoke and mirrors. And my first take was, well, clearly he's saying to the Europeans, you have to support it. It's on you, all of this.
Mhm.
Maybe he wants to raise the prices for the ammo and weapons that we need to buy for the
Probably.
Ukrainians. Yeah, that's probably part of it. But also he seems to have given up on all the nonsense. And then, funny enough, while he was talking about shooting down the drones and the airplanes, etc., from Russia, a journalist asked him whether the U.S. would support the Europeans in doing that, and he says, "Ah, that depends."
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. The thing is, if we just look at the positive, it looks like no more pressure on Ukraine to commit to something crazy, and no more pushing them. And at least there's something. Then we'll have to see, can we at least purchase the weapons for a reasonable price, and the ammo that Ukraine needs. The last thing we heard over this weekend was that the Pentagon won't sell any more PAC-3 missiles for the Patriot system because they need them themselves.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, exactly. And I still think that's the likely course of action. And the thing is, what we need to remember is, over these last 2 weeks, Trump has taken steps to normalize relations with Belarus.
Mm,
And Belarus is just a stooge of Putin's. So that is really relieving the sanctions on Russia through the back door.
right.
And then that's not so positive. And my guess is Trump will go through with that.
Partly because of the
Uh,
airline parts that now Russia will be able to access through Belarus that they've been desperately needing for their aging aircraft. I'm really interested in what happened in Copenhagen, because you're right there, and there were these drones that suddenly appeared out of
And Norway.
nowhere
Yeah.
for 4 hours. Stopping airline traffic, stopping the entire country in its tracks. Really, as everyone trying to figure out what it was. Do we know whether they were Russian drones yet, or do we just suspect it's Russian drones?
Well, when I look at the evidence, I would say it's highly likely, because these were big drones. These were fixed wing drones. It's not something that you just launch and go to some kind of hobby shop
You can't
to
get
buy
it at
them.
Home Hardware, Canadian Tire, is what you're saying?
Exactly. So it's something run by state actors.
Right.
Now, and funny enough, only 2 weeks ago, the Germans boarded and held back a Russian Shadow Fleet ship. And coincidentally, at the same time, just past Copenhagen, there was a ship more or less the same design as this ship that had been sailing around northern Germany, where the Germans know they had launched drones to do surveillance on German military targets and critical infrastructure in northern Germany. And that's why they held back and still have the ship in custody. And one of these very suspect ships that was sailing there on Monday was exactly the same design. So we
Okay.
know these types of ships have been used to launch drones before. So, and these drones that were there were with lights on, and they were clearly trying to make their presence felt. Now, would any other actor than an actor that wants to sow fear and doubts, etc., do that? My answer to that is no.
Not
So,
likely.
I mean, we're looking at a state actor, and it's probably not Sweden or Portugal or Ireland or whatever.
Or Canada.
You're saying the Irish aren't waging war against the EU at the moment? Well, listen. Let me ask you a question. By the way, Jacob Carsbo. Everybody needs to follow him. His name at Jacob Kaarsbo on Substack. He is incredible. If you want to know what's going on in the EU before everybody knows what's going on in the EU here when it comes to Russia, the EU, NATO, Ukraine, my man Jacob is incredible. Give him a follow. He does incredible work. He keeps people up to date. And then he'll get a phone call from me going, "Hey, can you talk about the drones in Copenhagen?" He's like, "I'm doing TV in 5 different countries over here. Stick it." So he's very important. But
sorry about that.
No, buddy. I'm just so grateful that you're here today because you give so much context and you're a pro, right? And we need context because in the world that we live in, they'll take any piece of evidence and they'll try to distort it and try and point the finger at someone else. And that's how world wars start. That's why the United States is in the mess that it's in today. So, getting it from the horse's mouth is real important. So, Jacob, that's the question I would have for you is, 4 hours in Danish airspace, I believe similar amount of time in Norwegian airspace, correct? When we're talking about where these drones were and what they seemingly targeted or where they spent most of their time, do you guys have any of that information?
Well, the authorities haven't really pushed out a lot of information. They've held back a lot. Now, clearly, our country wasn't prepared properly. This should have never happened. There have been drones around a harbor south of Copenhagen, etc., before. So, I mean, the radar surveillance, etc., around the airport should have been in place, but it wasn't clearly. And one thing I noticed after 4 hours, and you may know that the Copenhagen airport is right on the sea, really, and they would have gone back towards the east, and they decided not to take them down. So I really, really hope for our country's sake that our authorities have launched their own drones in pursuit of these drones to find out where did they go afterwards. Since they didn't take them out over the sea, I hope they've gathered the intelligence. And if our authorities have just been standing there on the ground and following these drones, and after 4 hours done zero, I'm going nuts.
Why is that? I mean, why would they have done? It seems like they didn't do anything to stop these drones. I mean, was it just a let it be situation? Don't cause chaos.
But that's why I'm saying I hope, and I don't want to think about the alternative. I hope it's because they decided the better course of action would be to follow them and find out where did they go.
Makes
to
sense.
be able to get all the intelligence and then come out later on. But I was hoping last night or during the course of the day they would come out with something firm. And the longer time goes by, I'm like saying, no, this can't be true. So we'll have to see. But I understand our security and intelligence service holding back because, they don't want to give away their capacities to collect, etc. So they maybe don't want to reveal that bit. And that's why they are holding back information and waiting until they've got everything. And then they can compile some general information for the public. I hope that's what's going on.
I do too. And unlike cooler heads, Mark Rutte yesterday, the UN Secretary General, was like, "Hey, I know Donald Trump wants the EU and NATO countries to start shooting down Russian planes, but let's exercise caution." And I think there's two schools of thought here. It's like, hey, Turkey shot one of those sons of bitches out of the sky a few years ago, and Russia was like, "Oh yeah, well, okay, no problem. We won't invade your airspace." But the other school of thought here is that you give an inch, that asshole takes a mile. And so, is there a plan in place? Are there conversations within the intelligence communities of the Baltics, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, that, hey, the next one, because I had a conversation with someone here in Canada, they're like, get ready because we're going to start pulling those things out of the sky. Is that a conversation that's happening right now?
Yeah, trouble is that Putin got what he wanted. There's a clear conflict within NATO between most of the Europeans and the Trump administration. And I think Mark Rutte is reflecting what the Trump administration is saying, namely, as Trump said after the incidents with the drones in Poland, he said, it might be a mistake, which is a whole lot of rubbish. So he's just basically making excuses for Putin. And all the European countries in the Nordics and the Baltics are saying we need to be much firmer than that. And
Yeah, absolutely.
you would have heard the Polish foreign minister more or less at the same time that Rutte was saying his nonsense, sitting there in the UN Security Council saying, Russia, don't whine because next time you do this, we're going to shoot your stuff down. So there's a clear conflict there within NATO, and that's not good. But uh, I think hopefully the Europeans stick together and do the hard line on their own, and then see whatever Trump comes up with, which is most likely nothing. Because if we let this go, the main problem is that Putin doesn't fear us, and he knows
Hmm.
Trump is not going to do a thing, and then it's on us. So it's the Europeans, supported by Canada, that need to restore NATO deterrence.
Absolutely, because you
And
got Russia. Sorry, go ahead. Finish that
as
thought.
long as Putin isn't afraid of losing his planes, he'll
Yeah,
keep doing that.
because Russia's testing these NATO countries, right? It's sending in these drones to see what kind of reaction they'll get.
Mhm.
If they are getting no reaction, they'll be emboldened to keep doing it. I mean, because why not? You can just keep,
They will.
ratcheting it up.
Well, that's what a bully does, right?
Yeah.
Like he comes, punches you in the face, you give him your lunch money. He's not going to move on to the next guy. He's just going to keep coming back and punching the same guy in the face and taking his lunch money. And I said this yesterday. Next thing you know, your sister's pregnant, and your dog's his. So you know what I mean?
But they have to respond in a more direct way. Otherwise, we're going to be, inching towards a world war very quickly.
Yeah, that's also what I'm trying to explain to media here in Denmark. It's not because we want war. It's actually to prevent war that we need to say stop and need to get this under control, because the Russians will keep pushing the boundaries, as we've seen with all the hybrid attacks over 3 years now. It's become more and more dangerous. And it's a coincidence there haven't been lives lost in Europe due to Russian hybrid attacks so far. It's been pure fluke, and that's why folks need to understand that before we have dead people in the street, we need to do something about this.
Well, and let's not, forget about the cyber attack that, is believed to be, Russia's doing in Europe this weekend, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you talk about hybrid warfare. You're just seeing what they do on the field, which is lose dramatically in Ukraine. But what you're not seeing is, cyber attacks. What you're not seeing are hooligans and thugs lighting, malls on fire and office buildings and bombing office buildings in and around Europe right now, which is literally going on daily, right?
Exactly. And then if you follow this and see the stats through 23, 24, and then this year, it's just going one way, and that's up.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more dangerous. So that's why the European countries really need to be firm and start responding in force to all this.
There's one other thing just before we go here. The Zelensky speech today included the UN General Assembly also included a warning around what he called the most destructive arms race in human history, talking about these drones driven by artificial intelligence, which he says, are basically going to be drones versus drones in the skies of the entire world, with
Yeah,
AI basically being in charge of what they shoot, how they shoot, and when they shoot. He paints kind of a very dystopic, depressing photo of what the world would look like in a few years, where these automated machines are going to be killing people left, right, and center. Is this
yeah.
a real fear, or is he over dramatizing it here?
No, I think that's a fair concern to have, because they're seeing it on the battlefield, and that it's getting more and more remote controlled. And then if we, it's just going that one way. I think he's right on that, and we need to make sure that that doesn't spin out of control. And I think also that's what the war in Ukraine is all about, trying to stop it, because the Russians will get more and more dangerous.
Absolutely.
And the irony of all this is, remember that first the Biden administration, now the Trump administration, they don't want Ukraine inside NATO. But if there's one country that will enforce Article 5, it's Ukraine, for heaven's sakes.
It's true.
It's not the rest of the softies.
Also, they have the best drones in the world right now. So
they have the best drones. They have the best drone defense. They have the strongest defense industry, and they're actually producing upwards of 60% of their daily requirements at the front line. Upwards of 60% now.
Amazing.
So they're heading towards 70%. So all this stuff about, Trump and the US being so and so important. No, they just need to be there with the moral support and the few technical things that we can help the Ukrainians with, and not grandstand like Trump and say everything will go to hell if we're not there, because it won't. And Ukraine has agency, and that's what Trump has underestimated all this year, and all these right-wing lunatics across Europe also that have jumped the Trump bandwagon for the last 9 months.
It's so incredible having you on for a bunch of different reasons, but that last point that you made about the sustainability of Ukraine's own defense. However, the past 3.5 going on 4 years this February, they start with nothing, and now they have some of the greatest drone technology in the world. They are leaders in the space. They are nearly self-sufficient to the point where they don't need anybody's help, and this is the goal. And I think that for the benefit or the lack thereof of a Trump regime, Canada's seeing the same thing with the evolution of self-sustainability, moving away so that dependence doesn't exist anymore. At the same time, it's a shame. It's also such a beautiful thing to watch. And the Ukrainian people have just been absolutely beautiful, incredible. Their ingenuity has blown me away. It continues to blow me away, from the ones that spray thermite on a bunch of people in a forest to the ones that have fucking shotguns loaded on them. I mean, it's truly some of the most incredible technology, but it's out of pure desperation because the free world, specifically the United States, has really, really let them down.
Yeah, when I go around doing keynote speeches and whatever, I have a couple tomorrow actually, and I have this slide now where it says, you remember the old Carlsberg ad, probably the best beer in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to show on a slide now, Ukraine, probably the best ally in the world.
Yes, good point.
I think for the Europeans, it's really the Ukrainians are going to be really important for security in Europe, more so than the rest of us.
More so than the United States? Is that what you're about to say?
Yes. Yeah. Jacob Karsbo, Jacob. That is his first name, last name Karsbo. Kaarsbo. He is on Substack, former Danish intelligence officer. Now he's an educator and a contractor to people that really want to know what's going on. And what he's saying is time for the European Union to get its head out of its collective ass for themselves, for Ukraine. Jacob, as always, it is so awesome to have you on the show. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, and enjoy the rest of the show. It's always great to be on with you good people.
Thanks, Jacob.
Anytime. Me too, Bell. We'll talk to you soon.
You're the best. Thank you so much.
Jacob Karsbo, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a quick follow if you can. He is one of the good guys. He's awesome, dude. I fucking love him.
I mean, I didn't realize he was the UN Security Council. That's like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, he's so humble. Like the best, most qualified people are. Like when you see Donald Trump out there every day going, I stopped 48 wars. I'm the only person. I'm the best. I did this. No one can stop this but me. No one can be. And then you got like Jacob Karsbo, like a legitimate dude, right? UN Security Council, former head of the Danish intelligence service. I just found that out today. We've had the show like 5 times.
Yeah, no, it's just it's amazing. And his insights are so good. He's so diplomatic at the end there, but he is actually saying that Ukraine is probably a better ally to Europe right now than the United States is. And he probably is not wrong. He's probably not wrong.
No, if you know anything about what Ukraine is doing, Ukraine and Canada have a partnership to develop drone technology. And quietly, and I'm sure I'm allowed to say this, it's not that much of a secret, Canada is literally ramping up production and manufacturing of a drone army. We're doing that with our partners in Ukraine. Ukraine is also helping several EU countries do the same thing. They're sending people into Ukraine going, how the fuck are you guys do this? Where they're doing it, I don't know. Because if I'm Russia, I'm finding out where they do all this stuff and I'm taking it all out. But they haven't been able to. It's all underground. And the ingenuity, the how-to of the Ukrainian people in the face of sheer terror, specifically over those first couple of weeks, today, 4 years later almost, is something that will one day be considered a miracle. So congratulations to the Ukrainian people. Let's get on with the FiveStack because we've got some conversations to have.
Although as you were mentioning there about the drones, there's also a new Nord Space rocket. For the first time ever, the Canadians have their own rocket, their own private rocket that's being launched into space. This is, you know about this, I'm sure, because this is your territory. Nord Space postponed the first commercial rocket launch for the third day today. And this is first commercial rocket launch. I didn't know that we had that. Did you know that we had that?
Yeah, we do. Canada is one of those countries that kind of put a bunch of stuff on ice when America came up here after we built the Avro Arrow, and they're like, don't do any of that shit. Don't build your own rockets. Don't do your own communications. Don't have your own military. Fuck the Avro Arrow. Just buy these missiles and we'll just keep you safe. And we made the shitty decision to do that. Under the Carney government,
all things are back.
Days are over. Absolutely.
He really is moving very quickly, is Mr. Carney, and it's impressive to see that these things are, I don't know if it's his direct intervention that this is going forward. In this
I think his intervention sped it all up, yes.
Yes, it does seem to be quite quick. Other breaking news just happening right now. MSNBC is reporting that Jim Comey is expected to be indicted this soon, they say. And it includes accusations of lying to Congress in 2020 when he first did that meddlesome priest speech. So that looks like it's on its way. It's not that surprising because that's what we expected once the attorney in Virginia was replaced by the Trump insider. It was expected that this was coming, but that it's coming this quickly is kind of unusual and also very, very scary. I mean, this guy obviously did his best under oath there, and I've got my reporting from that day. That's how long I've been around for, on the meddlesome priest that I'll put up after the show. And it gives you a really detailed explanation of how courageous he was to have done what he did. And I have a lot of things to quibble about Comey about, but when it comes to his reporting to Congress, what happened with the demands of loyalty from Donald Trump. Remember, Donald Trump had him over for dinner and was demanding loyalty from him.
Yeah, it was like the Godfather. He's like, I want your loyalty. And he goes, I pledge allegiance to the Constitution. He goes, I want your loyalty to the president. He's like, yeah, it's not going to happen. Yeah.
And if you remember correctly, he took contemporaneous notes as this was all going on. So every time he had interaction with Trump, he was writing down these notes.
Yeah, vociferous note taker.
Yeah. And that's what they used for a lot of the the underpinning of the Trump-Russia investigation was that, and it involved Comey's handwritten notes sometimes about his interactions with Trump. So this is Trump taking revenge on this, and I think the statute of limitations on this case was up next week, so they had to do it now, or they would not have been able to prosecute him at all. But it's a tragedy for democracy that this is happening.
Yeah, but it's not really democracy. I mean, it's just a tragedy because Donald Trump is a fascist dictator who's just going after his enemies. He promised revenge. He's delivering revenge, and I'll tell you, I'll give you a Coles Notes tour of what's going to happen. Okay, folks, stay with me. Jim Comey's going to get indicted. It will get laughed out of court. And the same thing that happened with his $15 bazillion New York Times lawsuit will happen with the indictment of one James Comey. Why? Why, Dean? Why do you ask? Because if you take conspiracy out of it, if you take bias out of it, you take religion out of it, you take the MAGA cult out of it, and you look at it on its face, James Comey is a decorated career prosecutor who is the head of the fucking FBI.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is a con man surrounded by other con women and men who are so fucking stupid they have a hard time tying their shoes if they're Velcro. So when you think about that and you think about who James Comey is going to surround himself with, as opposed to the meat puppets that are currently lined up behind Donald Trump saying yes or no, sir, this will go the same way the New York Times lawsuit went, and hearing today as well that they're also going to go after and indict Adam Schiff. That's apparently on the menu as well. They want to follow up the Comey indictment with an Adam Schiff indictment. And to your point, the statute of limitations runs out next Wednesday, a week from today. And so this is a Hail Mary and another distraction because apparently, Ro Khanna said this, Thomas Massie said this, they have 218 signatures for the discharge petition. So behind the scenes, what's happening? Donald Trump is throwing the fucking kitchen sink into the media atmosphere. And he's doing it by indicting people, going after people, canonizing Charlie Kirk. Today I found out that Donald Trump is going to request the U.S. Mint put Charlie Kirk's face on some money. That's not a lie. I shit you not. And everything that's getting thrown out there into the atmosphere right now for people like you, people like me, is a distraction from what is going to happen before the government shuts down at the end of the month. And that is, you're getting the Epstein files, kids. I truly believe that.
By the end of the month? I don't know if they'll get it by the end of the month. Do you think so?
I think so. Yeah. They got 218 signatures. Actually, I read today they got 224. The other people that have signed the discharge petition are being notoriously quiet. And they're literally watching Trump. It's you ever watch like a movie where they're bailing out a boat? In the back of a boat, they got buckets. It's taking on water, and they just keep throwing as much water as they can back into the ocean. But the ocean keeps filling up the boat. Pretty soon, they're underwater. That's the stage we're at of the Trump presidency. To give my friends some hope.
But I think that the shutdown is coming as early as the 30th, which is when that last vote is expected to be available to them. They're not even in session until the 30th or the 29th. So there's really potentially one day there that they can try and affect this. And I don't think they'll have the guy there yet or that extra vote ready yet. So I think the shutdown is going to be another great excuse for Donald Trump to not meet the Democrats at the table and not come up with a deal and let this shutdown hide the Epstein papers again.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the people that I've talked to over the past couple of days that have a deeper understanding of this, obviously, than I do, said that that's a distinct possibility that he's going to rush to shut down government. But, I mean, much like the victim press conference, you can't stop authenticity. You're not going to stop. The victims are coming up with a list on their own. They're going to release that list. The Democrats, specifically the bipartisan oversight committee that is trying desperately to get justice for these victims, they don't have just plan A and plan B. They got plan C, plan D, E, F, G, and so on, because this is the ocean rushing into the broken boat, which is the Trump regime. It's the Epstein files. And so they're not going to let this go to the point where, even today we had and we'll get to it in just a second, we had a shooting at an ICE facility. And as hairy as that is, as carbon copy as it was, as much as the narrative is, again, like it's the left, they inscribed some bullets. Oh my God, Kash Patel put another tweet. It's just more of the same, and it's not even registering when it comes to what's really trending, when it comes to the conversation around Donald Trump. And what's trending is that the Epstein files are coming out, and he's doing everything he can to make sure he puts as much bullshit on the dartboard as possible so no one can throw a dart at it and hit an Epstein bullseye, if you will.
Let's get into the top 5 stories if we can in the last 15 minutes here.
I think we can. I think we covered like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think we can. So Kimmel is back. We saw him last night. His return to ABC News was quite triumphant, and I thought it was a terrific show. But that doesn't mean we need to stop watching what's really going on in the media space. David Ellison isn't done with his media empire building. This is, of course, over at Paramount, where he is, after uniting Paramount and Skydance together, is now preparing for a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. And the big headline there that everyone needs to start thinking about is what happens when CNN and CBS News are under one corporate umbrella, and those two entities unite, all under a voice that is going to be heavily influenced by people like Barry Weiss, much funded by Israel, and as is Oracle. Are we looking at a real change in the media landscape where one of the biggest, if not the biggest, news network, cable news network, is combined with another major network to really provide you a propaganda state-run television network that is going to be quite massive in its reach and incorporate things like TikTok and CNN.com, which is such a huge platform?
Yeah, and the TikTok thing is, I think, really important because it incorporates not just Skydance, CBS, CNN, Warner Brothers, Time Warner Brothers, which would be the fucking biggest media company in the world. But the TikTok thing is really important because Larry Ellison, Larry Ellison's dad, is involved in a bid along with another famous media name you may have heard of, the Murdochs.
The Rupert Murdochs, yes.
Lachlan Murdoch,
yeah.
David Ellison are rumored to be the two big swinging money dicks in the TikTok cracker factory, if you will. And so, you add TikTok on top of that, right? You add the Broligarchy on top of that because they own Elon Musk's relationship, Zuckerberg's relationship at Meta, Instagram, Facebook, da-da-da-da-da-da. And my God, it's not just a state-run media empire, the biggest in the world. It is an echo chamber for pure propaganda that goes from creation to distribution to social media.
Yeah, and all built on algorithms directed at you specifically. These are not just these aren't just algorithms. These are algorithms that know you really, really well, that understand exactly what you like and what triggers you, and they will share only content that matches their agenda with you. It's remarkable that it's happening, but it's also remarkable how quickly it's happening because. Why the rush? Why are they in such a rush to consolidate all these entities? And there can only be really one answer to that question, which is next year's elections. Imagine what happens on an election, a campaign which has already started to some extent, but will really build up towards November. Imagine what happens when you've got CNN, CBS, and TikTok all spouting the same propaganda at the masses,
or just got like Fox slightly different content that would appeal to a moderate Trump voter at CNN or a moderate Trump voter, an independent Trump voter that watches CBS. I mean, they've cornered the market on crazy bullshit propaganda, lies, gaslighting with Fox News. Jesse Waters yesterday was like, hey, maybe we should bomb the UN. Like literally he said that on television. So, it's the cornering of your attention market is in full swing, and Trump has the money and the people behind him to do it, and that is the scariest part of this new media empire.
Independent networks and folding them into a right-wing, foreign-owned propaganda entity is hugely challenging because you'll be left with ABC. If ABC doesn't fold into it too, at some point it looks like they would. And of course, NBC, which is busy divorcing MSNBC from its main network operations as well. So there's a lot going on there that should worry everyone in terms of the available media bandwidth as we head into the November elections.
Let me give you a quote from Franklin D. Roosevelt, and then we can move on to the next topic that kind of sums this up. I put this in the Daily Dean newsletter, which, by the way, you can get for free. Just go sign up at deanblundell.substack.com. We do a few stories every day that you need to be aware of, and I always put a quote in at the end of it that's relevant to most of the stuff that we talk about here, most of the stuff that goes into the Daily Dean newsletter. And I love this quote. It's from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The liberty of democracy is not safe if the people tolerated the growth of private power to a point where it becomes stronger than the democratic state itself. That is, in essence, fascism. The ownership of government by an individual, by a group, or by any controlling private power. That will send a shockwave down your spine if you think about what's going on with this Ellison bid, with the Trump media empire machine, and the purchase of TikTok by the same assholes that want to turn America into a technocracy.
Maybe we found the leader of Antifa there, FDR.
Go after him. Get his whole family.
Get that guy.
Yeah.
Number 4, this is a serious story. A rooftop sniper opened fire on an ICE field office in Dallas today, killing 2 detainees and critically injuring 1 before dying by suicide. FBI and DHS recovered shell casings marked with anti-ICE and are calling this targeted violence, which is sort of their speak for domestic terrorism, although they won't use that term. The attack comes as immigration rhetoric reaches fever pitch, but this is a very similar shooting to what took down Charlie Kirk, or at least appears to be on the face of it, with the inscribed bullets and the sniper from a rooftop. This is disturbing because it seems to fit a narrative more than it does any other thing that's happening here.
Yeah. Interesting, right? I'm sitting around having a coffee this morning. Getting ready to do a quick podcast with my friend Nick Farrow today, which was great. Had a great time with him. And all of a sudden I see the news of a shooter of an ICE detention facility. And the way that an ICE office, an ICE onloading, onboarding place. It's like a police station for ICE. And how I came to know that there was a shooting is the vice president of the United States effectively put out a tweet on top of a Kristi Noem tweet that said leftists had effectively attacked an ICE facility in Sally Port, which is an area of Dallas. And so I start doing a little bit of research, cursory research. Let me give you some examples of the carbon copy of the evidence that the FBI and J.D. Vance are literally putting out ahead of any investigation or any information whatsoever. If you remember Tyler Robinson. I've already forgot his name, which is great. Tyler Robinson. One shooter, lone shooter, right? Leftist, right?
So they said, yes.
Inscribed anti-MAGA content on some bullets that were magically left behind.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Right?
Yep.
And attacked an ICE facility. Something needs to be done. Now let me give you the short strokes. 2 people were killed. One is in critical condition in the hospital. Who was shot and killed?
Not
detainees.
ICE officers, yeah.
Not one ICE officer was fired on. Not one ICE officer was injured. Not one ICE officer was targeted. 3 detainees that were walking out of this ICE police station into a transfer van to get sent to a deportation facility or concentration camp were picked off by what is believed to be, I've seen a picture of him, a white young man named Joshua John, Jahn. You can look him up. And he took his own life in the end, but much like the other white shooter who was of almost a very similar age, who was also from a very Republican home apparently, also inscribed almost the same message in these bullets that were magically left in a place where you could take a picture of them and within 2 hours send it to the fucking director of the FBI, who could put it on social media to frame everybody that isn't them for another ideologically motivated, violent, extremist act. That's what happened today. That's what happened today in comparison to the explanation, the evidence, and the receipts that we have from the Charlie Kirk shooter. So that's all we know. However, the fucking FBI director poisoned the well by saying this is the evidence the perpetrator left behind, and it said anti-ICE on one bullet. Fuck, that's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing how it all fits into the narrative. They all leave behind the same calling card. None of these guys know each other. They're all white. They're all the same age. It's amazing that they're all leftists.
It's amazing that they're all leftists. It's amazing that these shootings are happening. I mean, that's where you sort of lead yourself to when you ask those questions, when you start questioning all the evidence and you really take an analysis of those text messages, for example, which clearly were made up in the Charlie Kirk shooting. You can't really trust the FBI anymore.
Oh, no, not even really. You cannot trust the FBI. Well, you might be able to trust the FBI. You cannot trust the director of the FBI. You cannot trust anything Kristi Noem says. You cannot trust anything that comes out of fucking J.D.
She's in
Vance.
charge, then you can't trust them right now. And if
you can't trust the
Vance
DOJ.
is putting out all this bullshit too, he's putting out those propaganda, then there is no Department of Justice. When the Department of Justice is spending its time going after Jim Comey, then that's their priority. You can't trust them, because they're not doing the work that they should be doing, just trying to understand exactly who is killing people in America, who killed Charlie Kirk, who killed these people today. There's clearly a problem with endemic violence in American politics, but they're not focused on that. They're focusing on something Jim Comey said to Congress 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So 5
That
years
really
ago.
upset Donald Trump. That was factual.
Yeah. So, you can't trust the DOJ and you can't trust the FBI anymore. And so where is America right now? I mean, we're all sitting around looking at day by day, this last few weeks, at the degradation of our society. We no longer have a democracy. We have something nearing an authoritarian system. But every single day we're being tested ourselves. I think about those drones going into Europe, testing Europe. The Trump administration is busy testing America every single day by saying, how far can they push this? How far can they push America's sense of this is normal, to be taking out political opponents, to be framing people for crimes that they didn't commit, but for framing an entire sector of the political spectrum? I mean, they're basically saying the entire left liberal wing of the American political spectrum are extremists, are terrorists. And there's no evidence of any of this, but they are having these events take place, which in their mind is enough to confirm the narrative they're trying to sell us.
Yeah.
But what is happening is the left is being demonized and he's going to be completely ostracized. And what's going to be left is this one-party system falling under Donald Trump, an authoritarian system that is beholden only to him and only really cares about his whims. It doesn't matter who disappears on the other side. It doesn't matter what happened to those people at Alligator Alcatraz. It doesn't matter to anybody what's going on. And no one is out there protesting it in a way that makes Trump fear the people. In the same way that Putin is sending those drones into Europe without any reaction, Trump is getting very little reaction too from everybody, because everyone is either just too scared or too apathetic or too nervous to do anything about it. I mean, I'm hoping that there is an awakening coming. I keep hearing this awakening coming, but when is it going to be enough? When do you call an authoritarian government an authoritarian government? Right now is a good time to call them that.
Well,
because
sorry, go ahead. Continue. Yeah.
Well, what happens down the line? I mean, you take all these people. So you got people disappearing from immigration, being picked up off the streets, taken out of schools, disappearing into other countries, into gulags, into other places. Where does that go to? Like, what's the end? If you play the tape out on that particular scenario, where do you land up? You land up in the Holocaust. You land up in Nazi Germany. You land up in terrible places. When you play out what he's doing now with the Justice Department by weaponizing it against Comey and company, where does that play out to? Well, I mean, that plays out to everyone not having any political voice at all.
Well, and that's the point.
Yeah. And what Kimmel did, with Kimmel firing Kimmel, and he's back, and that's great for a minute. But where does that go down the line? If you played that tape out, you've got, laughter being banned. You've got political commentary being banned. You've got joy being banned. You've got everyone worrying about every single thing they say on any given day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then trans people, you can't be trans. You can't be gay. You can only love a certain way.
Can't be an academic. Can't be a teacher. You can't teach critical race theory. You can't treat physics. You can't teach math. You can't teach biology. You can't teach epidemiology. There's
research.
No science. That's the goal. I mean,
you land up in where does that all land? Take us to. It takes us to the most unbelievably horrific place you can imagine America going to. It takes Russia and then some, because it's the world's biggest superpower. So,
yeah,
if there's a time to wake up, now is the time.
Yeah, I would not disagree with you. Listen, I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm really not. But today's ICE shooting of 3 detainees being framed by the FBI and the Vice President of the United States, who've declared war on the left 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
As another leftist shooting without any information whatsoever. Both of them known compulsive fucking pathological liars. Okay? It's really important. I am more convinced today than not that not only, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say it. Not only does the Charlie Kirk shooting look incredibly suspicious because of the excuse and the evidence and the narrative that came out prior to anybody really knowing anything.
Everything about it.
I'm now even more suspicious that they are engineering false flag shootings around the United States and using these false flag shootings to frame more people, to aggravate more crazies, to endear and activate more maggots, to believe Trump, to take his side, and also to fucking petrify anybody that is not on his side. Anybody.
100%. There are people who stormed into Capitol Hill and basically threatened the lives of so many of
They
our
killed
representatives.
cops, dude.
Killed cops, and also just threatened the vice president of the United States with murder. And those same people are no longer in jail, and those same people are ready and activated and indoctrinated quite heavily over their time in jail to do all sorts of things, I'd imagine. And we don't have a clue what's going on with those people. A clue.
No, we don't, and we won't. And I said this morning on a podcast, and we can move on to the next story if you want. But, much like Allies, the German people had no idea about the atrocities in Auschwitz, Dachau, and other concentration camps until the Allies rolled into Germany, Poland, and started freeing Jewish people and other human beings that were turned into animals in concentration camps and systematically eliminated and genocided. We're not going to find out the extent of the horrific crimes that this Trump regime has committed in the first 9 months of his term in concentration camps, or the strategy involved behind what he's trying to do to make America so fucking afraid so that he can declare martial law. He can shut down an election, which Gavin Newsom talked about yesterday on the Jimmy Kimmel Return. That's the goal. The goal is to foment so much fear into 360, 370 million Americans that when push comes to shove, all of his criminality, all of that stuff gets washed because America's just too dangerous. The lefties are just too extreme. I'm afraid that we're going to have people shot and killed in voting booths and blah, blah. This is not like, if this is a false flag, if these are false flag events, I'm saying if, and we start seeing more of them that we see in ambiguity means that something is very fucking wrong and that America is in much deeper trouble than you think you are.
I mean, I think it's there already. I think when you look at the similarities between this shooting and the Kirk shooting, it's too similar. It's too much of a template. And the fact that Vance and Kash Patel are so
same
ready to come out with their predetermined justification for what has happened, it's just beyond coincidence. I can't imagine what the probabilities of that are, but it can't be that high. So it is what it is. We're in that moment where America is being, its final days as a democracy is happening if it hasn't already switched over. And the number 2 story, I guess, in the countdown today was all about the shutdown that's looming, and that is another sign that by next week we could have a complete shutdown of the government. That serves a wannabe king really, really well. Imagine being able to not have any attention paid to any of the investigations they have around Jeffrey Epstein. Imagine being able to launch a war into Venezuela without any question, without needing Congress to approve it. Imagine being able to fire who you want to fire without any government officials being questioned in any Senate hearings. Imagine all the policy changes that they could make without anybody stopping them. This is where we're heading in just 6 days from now.
It's a news story that came out this morning, how Trump scraps a meeting with Democrats raising government risk shutdown because they got to vote on that stuff. He's already canceling voting. He's canceling meetings to vote. He's canceling meetings to vote on oversight for Epstein files releases. He's canceling. Your fucking election is next, friends. All signs point to yes, to what you said, to your whole point, which is, I don't disagree. You're in it. You are officially a dictatorship. And much like we saw for years, these extrajudicial killings committed committed by Putin against all of his enemies, from Navalny, shooting guys in the back in front of the Kremlin, people falling out of windows. I mean, this feels like the beginning of that, sir, does it not?
It looks exactly like that. False flags is how Putin consolidated power. If you think he's not going to use the same tactics in the United States, you're wrong. Of course, he's going to take the same tactics and make sure that Trump uses the same tactics in order to consolidate power in America. It's just happening. It's something you can pretend is not happening, but it is happening and requires a real reaction. And I know it's hard to figure out what that is, but now is the time to figure it out. And, whether it's protests, whether it's protesting in a small way, resisting in a small way, everything that the majority of Americans feels right now needs to be turned into action. It can't just be something that we just passively sit down and accept. Because when you play the tape out, when you look at where we're going, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare for the whole world. It's a catastrophe for the whole world. And I don't think it's dramatizing, overstating it to say that. I think that's just where we're heading.
100%. You know what? We're touching on something. It's funny because I say this all the time, and I really do try to stay away from conspiratorial shit. But when you're being worked, you know it. And America's being worked from today's assertion that there was another inscribed bullet that's anti-MAGA to, to Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, poisoning the fucking evidence well with a tweet with evidence, and JD Vance then ascribing that evidence comes from a lefty shooter, and then Kristi Noem doing the same thing. I mean, America is a kakistocracy, but it's also an authoritarian dictatorship. These are just his oligarchs. These are just people that are going to repeat the lies, repeat the false flag bullshit, repeat, because they're running the Goebbels program, which is if you tell a big enough lie, if you give people a reason. I said this morning, this is the Horst Wessel moment in the United States of America, 1930s. SS guy killed by his landlady for running basically a female hooker / body house in his home. She had him killed, and that turned into literally a battle cry for the Nazis to go out and start killing more people. So, this is not, which, Goebbels knew was a lie. Everybody knew it was a lie. But how can you convince people that martyrs are martyrs and you're next and the next bullet's for you in the face of clear evidence where today a white young man shot 3 detainees, killing 2. 3 migrant detainees, killing 2. And Kash Patel is out there saying, oh, look what we found on the bullet. Well, the evidence would suggest you're full of shit, Kash. The evidence would suggest that you're faking it. The evidence would suggest that no ICE agents were shot or targeted at all. And conveniently, the young man's dead. Shot himself, apparently. So, I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around sometimes, especially when it just keeps happening. But if it keeps happening and it's the same story and the same drip and the same MO and it's all a carbon copy, you can start to believe what you're seeing, right? As opposed to believe what you're being told about what you just saw.
Look, we're all being subjected to trauma. We're all being, on a regular daily basis, are now being traumatized by events. And in those events, you sort of have the freeze, fight, or flight instinct. That's what you go to, because your body is just about self-preservation. It's not about doing anything else. And we have to process these things as one does with trauma and understand what's happening in real time almost, in order to be able to get out of that fight, flight, or freeze instinct that we have, and in order to react effectively. And that means we've got to get the news, understand the news, get the truth about the news, process it really, really quickly, and then figure out how we're going to have a consistent form of reacting to this administration, because we are going to have to show up in the millions, I believe. I think there's no other way to show this government that you want them out of there, to show the world that you want them out of there, unless you show up and do it, because the message is completely suppressed online. I mean, you can't really get a clear feeling of how resentful America is about all of this, because all the algorithms are so screwed up. On X, you get a 50% blend of right and left, even though the country might be 95%.
Well, and 64% of those are bots, right? That are literally engineered for the algorithm for Elon Musk.
Yeah. So you're not getting a real picture of how scared America is, how terrified they are of the situation, but also how angry they are about what's going on. And the only way to get a real sense of that, unfortunately, is you're not going to get it through Ellison's state TV run network, state-run TV network. You're going to have to go out there and show it. You're just going to have to show it. At the end of the day, there is no other way to show it. And that's what the Constitution tells us we're capable of doing and should be doing. And that's just how it has to happen. I'm not calling for revolution. I'm just calling for people to protest peacefully outside the White House, make sure that this government knows that they don't have a mandate from the people. And the world needs to see that they don't have a mandate from the people, because if otherwise it's going to be the same as Nazi Germany. Well, hey, you let it happen. You let it happen, America.
Yeah, the danger of that, and I think a good place to kind of wrap this up, even though we're not at the number one story, this is the number one story, if you ask me.
Yeah.
It's the rugging of America. We talk about sort of the, unspoken parts of what we're talking about, what we're dealing with when it comes to the Trump dictatorship and authoritarian regime. But really, one of the saddest parts is that the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ used to be DHS, even during the Bush administration, used to be that back line, that backstop for America. And when something like this would happen, you'd never get any information from the FBI, from the DOJ, until they knew, right? You would get, there's no rush to judgment. We're urging calm. Remember that? Let's tell everybody to stay calm. Tell everybody that we're going to figure this out. We're going to hold these people accountable, whoever they were. Let's not go after each other. Let's not breathe life into this. It doesn't need to have that kind of life, that kind of hatred. And they would go on this anti-hatred thing. Hatred doesn't beget more hatred. You can't, 9/11 is a great example of that, right? Don't go after Muslims because they're Muslims, like the FBI literally said that. We live in the opposite of that time now, where you can't trust a fucking word that comes out of the DOJ, any branch, because it's Trump's DOJ. He owns it. You can't trust a fucking word that comes out of the CIA. You can't trust the vice president of the United States. You cannot trust the president of the United States. You cannot trust the HHS director. You cannot trust the DHS director, because they have been proven time and time and time again to be cultish liars, pathological liars, very fucking underqualified. They are meat puppets. I said it earlier. I'll say it again. And so when something like this happens, that fucking terrifies a city. And it happens multiple times. That terrifies a country. And the people that are supposed to be that backstop urging calm are fomenting more anger and rage with bullets, with anti-ICE messaging on them, saying, this is the guy, he's coming after ICE. They don't have to say he's a leftist anymore. All they got to do is etch something on a fucking bullet case and go, see, we told you. From this group of fucking morons, it is staggeringly unfair to be an American trying to figure out who's telling the truth. Are we safe? Will this happen to me? What's going to happen? Looking up in the sky at buildings every time you walk by an ICE facility now, wondering if someone's going to come into your home, and then wondering what they're going to frame you for. Wondering how they're going to position it so that they can justify coming after you, an American citizen. As you pointed out, that's where we are. And to me, that is one of the fucking saddest pieces, some of the worst fallout of this Trump regime, is 370 million Americans that used to have enormous faith in their law enforcement and legal institutions, now are very well aware that this group of assholes is trying to destroy America, trying to make you afraid, trying to frame an entire subset or an entire fucking 3/4 of the population as people that need to be taken out. And you can't believe anything that any of them have to say. And to me, that's the saddest shit ever.
Just to sort of button on that, Pete Buttigieg said the other day, and I don't have the full quote in front of me, but essentially what he said is that, the one thing that people don't realize is how powerful they are and how much fear they strike in the hearts of the administration. The administration is terrified of people showing up. The administration is terrified of the majority showing up and saying that they've got to go. That is the one thing that scares them the most. And people need to realize that they really have the power to do what they need to do here. Will they act on it? I don't know. But, I think there's something about understanding the power that there exists and not cowering to the fear, which is really about the only thing you can do right now in this, crisis that has enveloped the world.
Yeah, Buttigieg said something to the effect of Trump is nowhere near as popular or powerful as he thinks he is, and you are much more powerful than you know you are.
Thank you. That's exactly.
And that has never been more true. When we realize, and I hope the time's coming for my American friends, when we realize there's so many more of us than them, that's when things change.
Yeah. And the world's counting on America, by the way. It affects everybody. That is the FiveStack today. Join deanblundell.substack.com for the latest news on everything from that happens in Canada to the United States. Anything you as a democracy lover like to read, deanblundell.substack.com, 50% off until the
end of the month. Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple pieces up there I think you'll love if you love democracy and you want to stand up for it, including the undressing of one Donald J. Trump, who thinks everything from deep state escalators to deep state teleprompters are out for him. Hey, newsflash. Everybody might just fucking hate you for legitimate reasons, and we talk about which ones those are. A little blurb on the ICE shooting, and of course, the Daily Dean newsletter, which you can go and get again, 50% off. I don't care if you pay. It doesn't matter to me if you're a paid subscriber. I am just so grateful to have you here. Please share all the content that you heard today. Please like those hearts. Please hit that little box with the arrow on it. Send it to as many people as you can. If you find this enlightening, interesting, or if it gave you comfort, or at least kind of gave you a roadmap to kind of seeing what's going on around you. Same thing with Zev. There's no better investigative reporter out there. Narrative.org. You've got a couple pieces out there, and I'm very interested in your next greatest heist series. When are we seeing that drop?
Well, we're doing something very different tonight at 7:00. William K. Black, the guy who was the regulator around the SNL crisis, the guy who put 1,000 bankers behind bars when that crisis broke in 1987 and in the 90s. He is joining us for a special paid subscriber event for a full hour and a half. I'm going to go through that whole crisis and examine what we can learn from that crisis, who created the crisis, who benefited from the crisis, and the themes that come out of that, you won't be surprised to hear, link into every other financial crisis we've had, including the 2008 crisis. So, the same players that are in the greatest heist. It's all about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein and Black and all these other people that were involved in what I think is the greatest heist in American history or the world history, all appear in the story. So it'll be really interesting to hear from William K. Black. It's terrific that he's agreed to do this. And I think it's the first time I've done this, because it's part of the research I'm doing for the next chapter, to have the audience be able to share in the experience of that interview, share ideas, share questions. I think it'll be really interesting to see.
Oh, that'll be cool. It's like a research podcast where you're actually going to be writing down stuff for a greatest heist piece, but you're going to be doing the interview with William K. Black in a Substack Live. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically, that's exactly it. So it's a new experience for me and a new experience, hopefully, for everyone who joins in. So it'll be fun to do tonight at 7 p.m.
All right, thanks. I'll be watching. Thanks, everybody, for being part of the FiveStack today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your resistance. Thank you for the community that you give us. It is the honor of my life every single day to show up at 3:00 for America, for Canada, for democracy, and for a better North America. Keep an eye on democracy. Keep your eyes and ears open and keep your wits about you. We'll see you on the FiveStack. Tomorrow at 3:00, I'm on my way to go watch the Jays in Boston at a little tilt down at Rogers Stadium today. So I'll let you know how that goes tomorrow.
I'll be hanging on to every score.
No, you won't.
Whatever
You're
it is
not
that
watching.
happens.
Yes.
It's baseball.
It's inning.
Bye,
Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.